Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
With all this talk about nudes and endorsements and anti-endorsements, also discussion about it. Romney, of course, can't forget Ron Paul with the big Iowa caucus coming up in just a couple of weeks. Steve King, Republican from Iowa, will join us about an hour from now. Yep. We'll get his take on where he sees this thing going in his home state, and also whether or not these endorsements mean anything, and how he felt working with Newt Gingrich over the years. We'll do that about an hour from now. Right now, though, Jeff Light joins us. He's an attorney advising Occupy D.C. We reported yesterday that Darrell Issa, head of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, wants to look into this. Exactly, what is the relationship between the Department of Interior, the Park Service, and the Occupies about their ability to stay at McPherson Square specifically. So first question, Jeff, is do you have, the Occupies have a permit to camp out at McPherson Square or to protest at McPherson Square? Do you know that right off the bat?
Hi, good morning, sir. Thanks for having me on. There's no permit. In McPherson Square, the law does not require a permit if there are less than 500 individuals there.
Okay, so there's no permit whatsoever, and you are then saying that it is legal to just sit there all day or for weeks and end as long as you have less than 500 people?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, let me ask you this: what gives you the right to think that you can just camp out at this park? I mean, that's one of the things that Issa was looking at. That you're not allowed to have tents up, and you're not allowed to actually sleep overnight at parks like that. What gives the occupiers the right to spend the night and to camp out at McPherson Square?
Well, the law does allow them to have tents, and the Supreme Court and the D.C. Circuit have upheld the right of protesters to have tents. The issue is simply the sleeping part of it, and that's an issue that we are currently challenging in a court case, whether sleeping can be an expressive activity as part of an occupation and therefore protected by the First Amendment.
Usually when you're sleeping, you're kind of quiet. You're not doing a lot of expressive activity. I'm just curious as to how you think that is something that is expressive to sleep.
Well, there are lots of ways that sleeping could be expressive.
Right.
But in a certain position, on a certain kind of pillow. I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Certain kind of clothes on. You explain to me how it is expressive.
Well, there are two aspects to it. It's number one, it's expressive as part of an occupation. It wouldn't really be an occupation if people left in the evening and slept somewhere else and came back. And it's central to the message that individuals are there 24 hours a day, and they're going to have to sleep if they're there.
All right, Jeff. Now, we all believe in the right to protest. We got no issue with that. But generally, when you come to protest, you have a stated position or an issue that you care about. And we've talked to some of the people down there at McPherson Square. They don't really have an issue, and they can't even espouse what it is they're protesting about. And generally, when people come to protest, they don't get to say, stay in the park in ad infinitum, and they don't get to take over a park and deny the people who actually pay for the park to be there to the right to use that park. So what gives you the right to be different from everybody else who comes to this town to offer protest?
Well, the Occupy D.C. has put out a declaration that specifies why they're there, and that was something that was agreed to by the General Assembly. And their message focuses on wealth inequality and the influence of corporate power in the electoral process. And there's no reason to treat the occupiers any differently from any other protesters. But
they are being treated differently. Other protests are not allowed to camp at McPherson Square
and
for
stay
months
there
at a time.
Until the end of time.
Other groups are not given permits that last months at a time. Now, we could argue that all of them should be given those permits, but to this point, they have not been.
Well, as far as I know, nobody else has asked to do that.
Because they know they'll be told no.
Well, there are rules in place, but I have a question. Something that is sort of rare that conservatives and liberals sort of agree on is that our public parks are very nice to have, and it's something we don't mind funding, and we like the vibrant life that it gives us, and you can picnic and you can go have a nice time and enjoy it. Many of these Occupy events have prohibited other people who are not part of the event from enjoying the park that they in part pay for, and in this case, as part of the stimulus, funded $400,000 of improvements for, which are now being mostly, I'm sure, negated, shall we say. Isn't there an issue of competing rights here? Don't I have the right to go have a picnic in that park instead of being next to someone expressively sleeping?
Well, there's no reason you can't go have a picnic at the park. There's
right.
The occupiers are not trying to prevent anybody from coming in, and there have been, throughout the protest, other people coming in either to express different messages or to picnic in the park. There's a area that's left open where there are no tents. But, I understand that there are going to be, the tents do take up a certain amount of space, but that's
well, at some point it's not a park anymore. It's just an Occupy place. And we paid for a park.
It looks like a refugee camp.
Well, the point of it is to convey a striking message by having all of those tents there that it is an occupation. And the public parks are the ideal place to do it because this is right on K Street, the center of corporate influence in politics. And parks, as the Supreme Court has recognized from time immemorial, have been a place to freely protest, discuss ideas, as happens in the General Assembly, and to convey a message.
All right, Jeff, let me ask you this. What would it take? You say you have, a list of things that you would like to hope to accomplish, but what would it take for you to say, all right, our message has been heard, we're ready to leave, we're going to pack up our tents and go sleep in our own places instead of sleeping in the park? What would it take? What do you want to actually happen?
Well, just to be clear, I'm a lawyer that's advising Occupy DC. I'm not one of the members. I don't.
Okay, when do you see then your sense of talking to these people of what they hope to actually accomplish? When will they say our message has been heard, we're ready to leave?
Well, that's up to them. I mean, I do think that at some point they're going to enter the next phase and have a strategy that involves more than physical occupation, and they're right now still trying to decide what the next phase is going to look like.
All right, Jeff. Good to have you on. We appreciate it. Jeff Lights, an attorney advising Occupy DC. To say the expressive sleeping is the one term that I haven't quite heard before.
Expressive sleep tonight.
Yeah, I do that. My wife says I do that on a regular basis.